Good evening, everyone. This is Kathy L. Murphy reporting from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law. And y'all, we've gone 1975. Robert Gwaltney, who's channeling Warren Beatty tonight, because we are going to be discussing shampoo. Doesn't he look fabulous?
Kathy, you look wonderful.
Well, I have something. I got these new shades today in this lovely mellow yellow color. So I was really excited about them. But, I can just pull anything out of my closet to pull this off. And I've been watching the film while getting ready. And talk about a comedy of, airs. I mean, he's juggling so many balls in the air, or should I say girls in the air.
Right.
It's not even funny. But what a cast, huh?
It is, so it's funny, the film was made in 1975, but it actually takes place in 1968 on the eve of the presidential election.
Yes, I know. And it's sad that it actually, I think, debuted February 11th, which is my youngest daughter's birthday, 1975. Of course, she wasn't born until decades later, but I remember that very well because I was in college at Kansas State University, and I finished that year, and then I worked all summer so I could go to Crumb's Beauty School in Manhattan to become a hairdresser. So when I started my career as a hairdresser, it was Farrah Fawcett. This movie had come out. Vidal Sassoon was at the peak. The Dorothy Hamill was coming into, but this iconic Judy Christie bob with the bangs was. I remember we were all when we saw her hair after and she goes, "It's just perfect."
She looked amazing.
She looked amazing. He looked pretty dang good too.
Well, absolutely. Warren Beatty was in his prime in that film.
Well, and there was a lot of hairdressers that became very famous around that time. I remember that Barbara Streisand, her hairdresser, John Peters, went on to become film producer, director. It was like a great segue into Hollywood. And this movie is hilarious. The character I could not remember was the Jack Warden, and he played it perfectly. I mean, he's got Julie Christie on the side. He's dealing with his wife. He has no idea what's going on, that his wife is getting a lot more done than her haircut and blowout at the salon. And I just love the terminology because it sounds so scandalous now. He's at the bank trying to get money and he's going, "You know how many heads I do a day?"
I know. and the banker was clueless.
Totally. He goes, "I'm sorry. What are you saying?" He goes, and then when he was talking to Jack Warden, who was the wife of one of the women's hair he does, about, getting the backing for the salon, they were in two different worlds. I mean, Jack Warden was more in my father's era, and Warren Beatty was, he was the hot hipster in, the scene of, oh gosh, this is when Way Bandy was like in his prime doing makeup. And I'm trying to think some of the other big hairdressers at that time that were just making every fashion. But what is funny about it is everybody always judged a book by its cover, or should I say career, because a man that went into hairdressing was presumed to be gay. I mean,
right.
Never said, but it was always presumed. So the guy was getting away with murder. But most of the hairdressers I knew, the guy hairdressers, were a lot more like Warren Beatty. And they got the biggest tips. It used to make me so mad. They just go, oh, they rub on their hair and you're just looking at the mirror at them. And these girls would just swoon. And I just think, it doesn't matter how much that I fluff somebody's woman's hair up, she was going to give me $1 tip, and they were getting 20, even more than that. And this was the 70s when you could fill up your car for $3, so, but this was quite the film. What was your favorite part in the film?
Gosh, so it really it's a satirical comedy drama. So I mean, it is. It certainly has a dark edge to it. Um, I actually thought the very opening was very interesting when he's in in bed with Lee Grant,
Yes,
and you can't see anything.
just the
You only
headboard thumping,
yeah, you're only seeing bits and pieces of conversation.
just the headboard thumping, and it was really funny. When I was first watching the film, I was looking at all the people that were in it. I'd forgotten Carrie Fisher.
Her that was her film debut.
Isn't that amazing? And I believe, I may be wrong. I'm not going to say it, but I think there was something maybe that went on between Warren Beatty and Carrie Fisher at one time too. I don't know.
Well, I think he had some sort of relationship with Goldie Hawn, with Lee Grant, and with who am I leaving out? Lee Grant, Goldie Hawn, and Julie Christie. I think that it's at some point he had a relationship with all of them.
Well, he was I think this film was made for him, don't you?
Yeah, it was. You have this promiscuous hairdresser who was juggling this chaotic life. He was the superstar of the salon, and of course, his name wasn't on the marquee. He was having to deal with this sort of substandard hairdresser. I forget the guy's name. Was it Norman or something?
Yeah, and he said, and I'm just so much better than him. And
Yeah.
he was. I mean, he was absolutely charismatic and charming. And when he looked at whoever's hair he was doing, they knew that they were the one. And it was, I just don't even, how whoever did the screenplay for it did an outstanding job, because it would be hard keeping up with
So Warren Beatty co-wrote the film.
Oh, well, he was speaking from the voice of his
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess, but I remember he had so many torrid affairs with everybody from the woman from Dynasty, not
Joan Collins.
Joan Collins, but he finally met his match when he married his wife, because I think she and him have been married for a really long time. And then he has the famous sister, which
Right.
they don't look a thing alike to me.
No, yeah, Shirley MacLaine and Warren Beatty, they don't look anything alike.
No, but I fell in love with Julie Christie when the camera loves her. Dr. Zhivago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh, that was fabulous. And then Goldie Hawn, I don't know. She did a lot of crazy hippy dippy movies, and then she became famous from her role as the bikini clad flower child that was painted in Laugh-In, Rowan Martin's Laugh-In. That's what I remember the most about Goldie Hawn. And she was always giggling, and laughing. I actually tried it, but I'm at the age where I just can't giggle like that anymore. My voice is just too deep. It's been I don't think I giggled like that when I was her age, but I think I recently saw her in a film. She was charming and adorable with her husband, Kirk Russell, and it was a remake of Santa Claus going to the North Pole, and he played, I know it sounds hokey, but they pulled it off, man. I thought they did a great job.
They were Mr. and Mrs. Claus, right? Something along those lines.
Yeah, it was, and there was a bad elf. And I actually kind of like the elf too. But it's hard to believe, that was my time. When when you go to college, that's kind of when you consider the music, the soundtrack for the show was absolutely hysterical. The opening song, I can't think of what it was right now, but I thought
wasn't it the Beach Boys song, Wouldn't It Be Nice?
I'm not sure, but I remember that I had I don't think that was it. It was another one because I had not heard that song since probably the 70s. And, right now, I think the world is at this place where they're feeling very nostalgic. So, for all these baby boomers out there, you need to watch Shampoo. It'll bring everything back. The smoking of Virginia Slims, the cocktail parties, I I was still a kid, so I don't really remember that much about, all this wife
Yeah. It was
swapping,
really
all that,
It was very reflective of the social mores of the time. On a deeper level, what's curious is that throughout the film you'll see the news. There'll be the news coverage, but it's blurred and it's muffled, and no one's paying attention. And it really is sort of an indicator of how self-absorbed people were before Nixon went into the White House.
Absolutely. And I can remember when Watergate and all that was going on, I was totally oblivious to it. And even Vietnam, we were all just caught up in our own little, and I lived in Kansas. So we're the last to know anything. This was before the days of social media and anything. People, they put a kid on television or three kids on a screen where they put a typewriter in front of them. And they were talking about what they thought it was. And the answers, they kept thinking it was a way of talking on a phone, an old phone. And they had no idea what a typewriter is. And it's so funny. In my house, I have 4 vintage typewriters, and my grandson absolutely knows what a typewriter is. He loves typing on the numbers and the letters, but it was a different time. And even the clothing, is all back. When I picked up these, I love these. I still have them somewhere. They were bigger, but I have round wire frame glasses from the 70s that I bought at the downtown department store of Geneshex. And they had exchangeable lenses. So it had lavender, blue, yellow, and pink. And they're kind of rusty now, but I remember wearing them and thinking that I was just so hip. They were a little bit bigger, but the lots of vinyl, purses, vinyl skirts, vinyl hats. I don't know what our love affair was with vinyl and patent leather in the 70s, but it was hot.
Well, you could just wipe it down. You were having all those affairs. You just Windex it off and went on to the next one.
Oh, Windex it. That's terrible. And his hair. I was really paying attention because at the time I really didn't pay it, but the back of his hair was blow dried, so it was windswept to one side. And I was just going, oh my gosh, what we used to do to feather, the hair. And
he looked amazing. Of course, this is my interpretation of Warren Beatty.
I had on 4 or 5 different blonde wigs, and this was the only one that I could get even close to the way Goldie Hawn and Julie Christie's hair was in the movie. But it was blown out in that perfect bob where it was longer in the front,
right,
and shorter in the back, and then the full frosted bangs. And when they frosted hair, they bleached it so it was silver. I mean, it actually is a very aging looking type of look, and it's back. Everybody's getting silver streaks in their hair, or they're they have gray hair and they're making it more silver. And I laugh. And when I went to pick up these glasses, and I was looking around Cato's, I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a I don't know, like a clothing store for people. And it started in South Carolina, but they had t-shirts with shoulder pads in them. I just go, you got to be kidding me. And the sales clerk came around the corner. She goes, that's what I'm saying. Because I remember wearing those things, and they're back. I go, shoulder pads in, and the t-shirt didn't have any sleeves. So it was kind of very, kind of that 80s new age kind
Yeah.
of look with no sleeves where they, all Duran Duran and all those bands like that were playing. And I said, "Are those seriously back?" And she said, "Yes, they are." And they actually had a pleather lavender off the shoulder blouse. And I'm thinking, who would wear a pleather lavender? Think how hot it'd be in the summer. You just
Would
feel
be
like you're
hot.
wearing a tablecloth. But I love the look.
Oh, I'm sure it looked amazing. Yeah.
Well, men wore their shirts undone almost to the waist,
Yeah.
and they were hairy and, they were real hairy. And I can remember a young man that went to work when I worked in Lawrence, Kansas, near Kansas University. Huge salon. There were 12 of us that worked there. And they had a carousel of stylists, and then they had a bank for those of us that had been there longer. And rows of shampoo bowls. And I can remember that these guys would come in those slinky shirts
I
with
love those shirts.
I don't even, they were wild, and
Yeah.
wear
A
those
lot of crazy prints.
high-waisted
Mhm.
jeans, real slim in the hip. They fit down to the thigh, and then they just went out. It was so ridiculous. And the way we used to part their hair in the middle and blow dry it, and you had to get it perfectly feathered on each side, and it kind of either went to one side or a ducktail in the back. And I would just do one every half an hour. Guys would come in, just like get their haircut, blow it out, and then be out the door so they could go to the disco. So it's really funny. But in another way, in watching the film, and he was always concerned with numbers and opening a salon and everything. It's Life hasn't changed too much as far as business goes, because he's going to the bank, he's trying to get money. And it reminded me a little bit too of everything that's been going on with the Me Too, and where we've had so many Hollywood giants fall from grace because they found out they've you know been
They were rapists.
pretty much. Pretty much. Now, it seems like to me everybody in this movie was pretty much sensual.
Yeah, they were very open. Again, the late 60s, that was just, that's just the
Free
sexual
love,
mores at the
and
time.
it was California. California was a lot different than Kansas, and where you grew up, I'm sure too, in Georgia. But it was very different. Um, and when I went out there, I was expecting that, and I'll tell you, it was Southern California is all about who you know, what you drive, where you live, how much money you make. I mean, nobody wants to know anything about, oh, you're from Kansas and what brought you out. No, what do you drive? A Honda. I mean, they're like, But I worked for Elizabeth Arden in the beauty industry in May Company, and I was a counter manager, and we had 17, there were 17 lines, and Elizabeth Arden was the lead line in Mission Valley. And I used to do these clinics, and this was not too long after that. This was the early 80s. So it was still around that time frame and everything. And I was shocked at how shallow it was out there. It was really hard to make friends because most people, I think it's kind of like the same way where people go to Hollywood, people go to New York, everybody's scrambling, trying to make it. And so they're everybody's competition.
Right.
So, but men hairdressers have always been in demand. Um, we reached at our last live girlfriend weekend. We had, oh, Miss, excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. I've been sneezing. Somebody said that means somebody's talking about you, but we had the man who took over Jay Sebring. I don't know if you remember Jay Sebring, but he was the stylist that not the man that came to Girlfriend Weekend was the stylist that took over Jay Sebring's company. Because if you recall, Jay Sebring and this is way before your time, but he was killed along with Sharon Tate during the Manson murders.
Oh yeah, yeah, I
And
know
this
the
little
name.
24-year-old hairdresser from New Mexico ended up taking over the company. Can you imagine? And he came and wrote a book about it. It was fascinating, and it was fascinating to me because that was during the time that I started in the hair business. And the hair business is a lot different now than it used to be. I mean, everybody, if you've got a YouTube channel or you've got everybody in the world is doing tutorials on makeup and hair, and they don't have licenses or anything at all. It's just kind of a free for all right now. But it was a big deal, and that's when we charged a lot of money for a haircut, and it's a lot different now. So what does the average haircut cost in Atlanta, Georgia?
Gosh, well, I don't know. I buzzed my head myself, so I'm not sure. Oh, I don't know. Let me see.
I guarantee you, I have a young girl that I used to do that lives in Houston, and she said she finally, it was too hard for her driving back and forth to come up here and get her hair done. So she started getting her hair done there. And to get her hair highlighted and cut, it was long and blonde. And then she had really blonde highlights put in it. It would run anywhere from $300 to $400.
Wow.
And I remember authors that would come in from New York to my salon in Texas, they would say, I'd always cut and style the hair for them before our book events. It was so much fun to do. Everybody from Rue McClanahan, all kinds of interesting people who starred in the Golden Girls. We had more fun. But I was doing this one actress who had won an Emmy, and she said, "Oh, I haven't got my hair cut, but usually when I go, and not color or anything, but just a haircut's $90." And I go, wow, it's 45 here. So that's like, half.
Yeah.
But that's what I charged in California when I was back in the early 80s. And now you can get a haircut around here for $20. Now, I wouldn't want a $20 haircut. I'd want the Warren Beatty where he's, doing
Yeah.
all the whoop-de-doo and stuff. And, I just watching him, it was hilarious because you often wonder who coached him on how to do hair. He did a lot of fluffing, but
Right.
I watched a Bollywood movie where this guy, the Shah Rukh Khan film, Shah Rukh Khan's best friend is a hairdresser, a guy. And I watched him cutting Shah Rukh's hair in the movie. I'm telling you, that guy knew what he was doing. And it's always interesting. And like Dolly Parton in the movie Steel Magnolias, she knew what she was doing too. She knew how to tease hair. And it's fascinating to me because sometimes they don't, they just fiddle with it, or they'll pick up the hair. When you cut hair, you pull it out taut and you cut. And when you see somebody pull it up and it's loopy and they start cutting on it, I just cringe because I think, oh my gosh, that would be bad. But Warren Beatty, I'm trying to think where this in his film, record of films that he's done. Was this before or after Bonnie and Clyde? It was before, wasn't it?
I'm not
Faye
certain.
Dunaway. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure that came later, but maybe wrong. I may be wrong.
yeah.
And Dick Tracy came much later.
Yeah, that was like in the 80s, I think, late 80s.
Because he had, Madonna was in that. I was trying to
Mhm.
think of some of the other films, and I think, was he in a film with Natalie Wood?
Yeah, well, Splendor in the Grass, right? Yeah.
Yes. The crossovers of all these people trying to keep up with this, it's kind of amazing. Oh no, Inside Daisy Clover was the one he was in, wasn't it?
Well, you know what?
It was Splendor in the Grass. I think that was
Let's see. Let me check.
Redford.
Could be. Yes, it could. That sounds
I
right.
think it was Inside Daisy Clover. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I need
Let's
to go back
see.
to that film. But I'm thinking, I really like that hairstyle. That's a good one. That's a keeper.
Yeah, so Warren Beatty was in Splendor of the Grass.
Oh, he was. I
And
got it backwards. And it was
Robert Redford in Inside Daisy Clover.
okay, I got it backwards. Okay, I twisted them around, but they were both incredible in it. But Warren Beatty was quite a star. I think the last film, I'm trying to think that he did. He hasn't done anything in a while. And Julie Christie, but Goldie Hawn's still out there. She's working away. I
Still
think,
hoofing it.
yeah, I think Julie Christie has done a few things, but it's interesting. I wonder, it makes you wonder why some people finally stop and some people keep going. Because they're both, let's see, Warren Beatty's married to an actress and she's still doing stuff. She's doing a lot. But I haven't seen him in a lot of things lately.
Yeah, it's been really quiet. I don't know if he's been working behind the camera. Lee Grant, who is an actress that was in the opening of the film, who was married to the Jack Warner character. She won an Academy Award for that film for Best Supporting Actress.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
She was in a lot of great movies, and she was a little bit older, so I'm trying to.
Yeah, she's like, I looked her up last night. She's like 90 years old now. She's still alive, but she's like 90. She's
oh my gosh,
did a lot of film directing. She's done a lot of film directing.
Yes, that's what it was, and I think Warren Beatty did too. How old is Julie Christie now?
Let's see. Let's look her up.
I saw her. She still looks great.
Yeah, she does.
And Goldie Hawn's daughter looks so much like her. It's just uncanny. I love her. I love her too. I think she's.
Oh, well, Julie Christie's 81.
Jiminy Christmas.
She looks great.
Yeah, she looks great. Warren Beatty is probably around that same age too, but I thought Lee Grant was a little older. Yeah, I think she actually went from acting to directing, and she's pretty sharp cookie. She was great in that opening role. She was so funny. She's a beautiful woman too.
Lovely. And I remember her in Valley of the Dolls.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. That
Great
is
film.
I watched that the other day, and it's like this movie. It's exactly the kind of thing the young secretary's always getting hit on, and and then everybody wanting to do all this pill popping and stuff. That was such a scandalous book when it came out. Do you remember?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do remember lots of talk about it. I can't remember what year it came out, but I remember an aunt reading it, reading the Jacqueline Suzanne book. Jacqueline Suzanne's life itself was quite extraordinary.
No kidding. Her and Danielle Steele, Joan Collins, all three of those women. Joan Collins was the sister to
Jackie.
Yeah. And they all had, multiple, partners and marriages and everything like that. When I think about the book that was the most scandalous when I was, I think this was junior high. I remember Love Story, which that was like 9th grade when that came out. And that's about the same time too. And, they're still alive and kicking too. Ally McGraw and Ryan O'Neal. And I just saw a picture of Tatum O'Neal, and she looks fabulous. And she's like, gosh, what did I read? She's like 61.
Wow.
When did these people get
I know it's shocking when you think back. I guess we expect that time's staying still for people, but it
Well,
doesn't.
then I think about myself, how old I've gotten to be, and I think, oh my gosh, the most popular star when I was in college was Olivia Newton-John.
Mm,
And Olivia Newton-John is getting up there too. But she was every Have You Ever Been Mellow?
mm.
I mean, it just cracks me up now because what a dorky song. But I guess she was kind of the guy's equivalent of Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was,
you're quite a different time. Just really sweet and innocent
yeah. But
music.
this movie is fascinating. If you guys, if your parents were raised in the 70s, you might want to watch it because this is pretty indicative of the styles of um, the dialogue, the, the, the way people talked back then. And it was different, it was a lot different than it is now. And it's just like when I went up on campus, when I went back to school at 59, I was just like in shock for about a month. And then I just got so I didn't hear it anymore because it was F this, F that, F, 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 F. And I was just, and even some of the professors, they were doing it too. And it just totally do it so much, they just were oblivious to it. And I just go, and I was talking to my kids about it, and they said, Mom, that's the way everybody talks. I go, wow, I've led a very sheltered life, but um, no more. I've been out there enough to know how people really talk. But this was the Jack Warden part, and I don't remember anything that he was ever in, but he was a big actor. He was in a lot of films, and he was always not the main character, but like the side, not the side, but maybe the businessman or
Yeah, I guess you'd call him what, a character actor.
yeah. But he was really good in his
Mhm.
role. In fact, I just don't think anybody in it, um, you know, the way they all carried they were so unique in personalities and everything. uh, It was not, I didn't get the characters mixed up because they were all, Goldie Hawn is definitely different than Julie Christie. Lee Grant is definitely different than Goldie Hawn. Warren Beatty's a class in himself. And have you ever known anybody like him?
Yeah, well, his fashion sense was, yeah, the way they styled him was amazing. You know what? And you could go out in those costumes today and look really cool. The scarves and the big collared shirts and the
Oh, it's
narrow.
coming back. If they've got shoulder pads in Kato's, which is, it's going to be all over the place. Shoulder pads. I just can hardly believe that. But I remember when I was working there in college, they had a shipment of bell bottoms come in that had the calico inserts. Oh man, I got a pair because I said, there's always a 70s party, and now I have the coolest pants, and I have a long fringed vest to wear with it. And sure enough, we did a girlfriend weekend where we all, at the author dinner, everybody was come dressed as, hippies. And some people's version of hippies was a lot different than mine. I loved it though. I loved it. But this is a great film. It took me right back to when I was in college, and I'm excited that we're doing kind of this decade thing. Next week, we're going to be doing Pretty in Pink, which is such an 80s show. And I don't know what I'm going to wear. I went to Goodwill looking for a horrible prom dress. Nothing could be as bad as that one that they had in that film. So, but I think the styles of the 70s never looked better than in Shampoo, though. I mean, oftentimes we think of 70s films as the iconic. I think of Shaft. Remember those suits with the platforms and the afros, and um, I remember going to college and wearing those big platforms and people looked at me like, Where'd she come from? Because it's Kansas, you know.
Right.
But I wore them, and I just thought they were really comfortable, because if you've got a wedge in the front and a wedge in the back, it's just like you're walking on blocks. I don't know.
They're like, yeah, they're like Frankenstein shoes.
Yeah, that's exactly what they were like. I had a brown leather pair, and you know, the high heels are the thing. You know,
I
that's
remember being a little boy and having these like little platform boots, zip up ankle boots.
I had Beetle boots.
And
Was
I
it
wore them. I wore them to Eastside Baptist Church with the leisure suit.
leisure suits? Oh my God. I remember a guy, I won't mention his name, came to prom, and he had on a burgundy suit, and it didn't have any lapels. And everybody's like, it was like polyester, but it had like black trim, but no lapels on it whatsoever. And it was like, who cut off the lapels, you know? But he was very trendy, you know? So it's fascinating when watching the movies how you can see how the styles have changed, the hairstyles. We've had the bob come back 2 or 3 times since.
The bob's just is just classic, right? You see many different interpretations of it even today.
Yeah, I don't see it as much now, but several years ago, it came back big time where it was short in the back and real long in the front. And oh, I had it. But um, but you probably wore your hair parted in the middle and feathered.
I try, you know what? I had very, very straight hair as a boy, and I hated it because everyone had feathered hair. So I would, I remember I was a young thing, so I would get into my mom's bathroom and I would use her dippity do and her curling iron to try to get my hair to feather. It was just awful.
Well, you can do it if you use mousse. You can get anybody's hair to feather, and you can get anybody's hair with flat irons to not be poofy. The hardest thing was for men with curly hair. I did a lot of guys that were from foreign countries, and they wanted their hair parted in the middle, but they had, you know, wiry hair. And I said, "Oh, guys, you know, I'll show you how you can straighten your hair." And they were just like, they used to come in all the time to get their hair blown out, because if you blow it out with a big brush, and you know, and then you can, even with a curling iron, you can smooth out hair. They were just like, this is miraculous. And then when the flat iron came out, you know, people just went crazy
They
about it.
didn't have flat irons when I was coming on. It was just curling irons and hot rollers.
Listen, when I went to college, I had a set of hot rollers, but blow dryers weren't out yet. Now, can you think about that? So people go, "How did you get your hair dry?" And I said, "Well, I would usually wash my hair, towel dry it as best I could, and stand on a chair in front of the heating unit and just keep brushing it until it was dry. And then the next morning I'd set it on hot rollers." But we didn't have why would hot rollers come out before blow dryers?
Well, I remember my mom and them having those portable dryers that you would just put this plastic thing on your head. It would blow you had this huge tube, vacuum cleaner tube, and it would dry your hair.
She'd roll her hair on gigantic brush rollers, and she'd give herself a manicure and a pedicure while her hair was drying. And then she'd I don't think maybe she used dippity doo, but when you took them out, they were crunchy. And you had to brush them like crazy to get the roller marks out. But she wore it in the flip, you know, that girl flip. It was brunette with the bangs, and it came down and flipped up. Like, that is hard to get somebody's long hair to flip up in a perfect roll all the way around the bottom, like Marlo Thomas from That Girl. This is again another show that was ahead of your time. But we can almost you can almost tell when a movie was made by the hairstyles and by the clothing styles, because it's, but yeah, it was set on the night of the election, 1968.
Mhm.
But I love the stretchy metallic belt that they used to wear. Julie Christie had them on with her high waisted slacks. and they were so tight. They were tight to about mid-thigh, and then they get loose. And it was just like you wouldn't have any extra pounds on your body wearing those kind of pants, because they showed every, you know,
They're unforgiving.
unforgiving is the word for it. It's pretty funny. And so, okay, so Lee Grant won the,
Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress.
was it up for best movie?
Oh, you know what? I don't know if it was up for Best Film. I'm not quite sure. It only won in that one category. Now,
Yeah.
the year that it came out in 1975, Jaws came out, as did The Stepford Wives.
As what was the other one?
The Stepford Wives.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I can remember going to the film to see that. And I'm trying to think, Star Wars came out
76, maybe?
just right after that too. Because
Yeah.
I think I was the last one to go see. The big thing to do in college was to go to movies. And I remember when I went to Jaws, we wore these slinky wraparound skirts, and I had made a zillion of them. And I remember I had this one sleek, I had a, kind of a cap sleeve polo on with this wraparound long skirt. And I remember when the shark come out of the water was going to get that guy, I pulled it up over my head, and all my friends were going, "Oh my God, you're showing your underwear." I was so scared. And at that summer, I went home and I lifeguarded at a state park in Kansas. Now it's fresh water. But every time I go down there, the first thing in the morning, all I could think about is da-dum, da-dum. And I think it's a freshwater lake. A shark couldn't even survive in a lake, but it freaked me out for a long time, much the way Exorcist came out when I was in high school. I've never seen it since. I'm sure I'd think it was hokey now, but at the time it was terribly frightening. I'd much rather go to movies like Shampoo. Shampoo, and then later on came another hilarious film, Animal House, which I watched it the other day and I go, I did not see one thing funny about it. I go, why did I think this was so funny at the time? Do you ever do that? Do you ever go to a movie?
Yeah, yeah. There are films, yeah, that I've seen that I thought, gosh, I can't believe that I like that film.
I mean, and I'll do that with books too. I'll read a book and thought it was so good, and then I'll reread it and I'll just go,
Yeah,
no.
well, yeah, we're different people in different places, and sometimes it's hard to revisit things we love.
It really is. And then sometimes you find out they're even better.
Yeah.
This movie is spot on great. I mean, it's dated, but yet it's not hokey. It still rings pretty true of the time. And in a lot of ways, to me, it was a more provocative time. The way people just,
Well, it would not be unlike it taking place before the Trump election, right? Before he went into the presidency. It would be very much, could you imagine, like if you were to take that same premise and paint it on the eve of that election, what the story might tell? Be very interesting.
it would be very interesting. And who would they cast? That would be interesting too. Well, I think we made a good choice with this film. So, is there anything else you can think of that you want to talk about, or?
No, well, just again, the fashions were amazing. Great music. There was "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds,"
Oh, yeah.
the Beach Boys song, "Wouldn't It Be Nice?" There was Sergeant Pepper's Band.
Lonely Heart Club's Band.
Yes, and there was a Jefferson Airplane song as well.
They were all just very hip and popular, and even the decorating and very. I'm trying to think of when Mad Men came along. I think it was a little bit earlier in the 60s.
Yes.
But you could see how it was transitioning into that. So, well, great choice. Great choice, Robert. And you've got the look. I mean, your hair is perfection. You've got the style. It's looking good.
Thank you.
Pretty in Pink is next week, and we'll be watching with the Molly Ringgold film. And I think I didn't like that film when it came out. I didn't like the Brat Pack. I think the only film they did that I liked was I liked that was around the same time as The Outsiders with Rob Lowe and Emilio Estevez and everything. I like The Outsiders, but I remember even St. Elmo's Fire. It was just.
Yeah, I didn't care for St. Elmo's Fire, but I loved the John Hughes films. I love 16.
Oh, yeah. This one was not my favorite, but there is one what is the other John Hughes film that I loved? I think my favorite character in the Pretty in Pink was Ducky.
Yeah, great character.
He was my favorite. And was that done about the same time as Ferris Bueller?
Yeah, probably.
I love that film.
Yeah, that's a great film, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off was a great film, but I haven't gone back and visited those from the 70s and 80s in a long time. So it'll be exciting next week. And, now the 90s I loved because I had gone back to college in the 90s, and that was back when Sting was popular and Madonna, and we used to go dancing all the time. The best dancing, was that time frame. But the music is very important to a film, and they got it right. They got it right. And Pretty in Pink has the same kind of soundtrack too. And the guy who, she finds so dreamy, I'm going,
Andrew McCarthy.
Oh, no, I like the Ducky character. I just thought he was the most fascinating. So we'll be watching it next week. I can't wait to see what you're going to wear. I have no idea what I may have to be a parent at the prom. I don't know. To come up with something, but I kind of feel like I had a fail this week. I'm just too old to be those characters, but it was fun dressing up with the 70s polyester dress and the crazy floppy hat that I used to wear when I used to lifeguard. It's waterproof, you can bend it, you can do all kinds of things. And it's reversible. Look at this is so funny.
Crazy. Wow.
The crazy things that I have in my I think I like it better this way.
Yeah, I like it that way.
There you go. And it's even got a stampede string, so the wind wouldn't blow me off my lifeguard chair. So anyway, we will be back next week with Pretty in Pink. Thank you, Robert. I look forward to these so much. I know Ruthie Landis sent me an email and she said, I'm so sorry I'm missing this. And I go, there's always next time.
Yes, and she's on a writing retreat, I think.
Yep, it's every Saturday night, 6:30 at the movies, and we invite all the book club members to attend and dress up with us because it's a lot of fun. We're all bored stiff and at home trying to find ways to entertain ourselves, and this has become the highlight of my week, is coming up with the outfits that I'm going to wear for this crazy show. And you should see my poor bathroom. I've got stuff thrown everywhere. But thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. We will see you next time. And for everybody out there, it's all about the story, and we'll see you at the movies. Adios.
See you later.
Peace.